I don't know if we can ever go back to those days when tulikuwa tunaenda Christmas kwa hapo with your cousins, tunapika chapati, tunapika kuku, we celebrate, because sasa tunaona kama tu watu wako together, kuna a lot of resentment in families, your rift between families, and a lot of things, siblings, rivalry.
We are living in a hypocritical world. Wenye hawana wanakaa kama wako nayo, na wenye wako nayo wanakaa kama hawana.
Mzee amerudi na TX, then unapata place anaenda kupakio TX ni nje ya kihat na ni shamba yake ujue. Wewe unafikiria mbona mzee akutaka kujenga hapo? Unaona? It's because maybe the neighbors na the surrounding nini haiwezi appreciate your idea success. Unaona kwa kina nini. So what does this guy choose? Choose kuka jiji the rest of his life ama nini, unaona?
My neighbor alienda Nairobi after kupata job. Immediately watu wa ushago venye walisikia amepata kazi, wakaamua kuchukua mtu mmoja kumtuma kule ili aweze kumharibia kazi.
Wanaweza kuwa wanatoka mabaya firstly because una progress. Kenye inaleta hii evil eye ni hatred. Umechukia tu mtu ama umechukia tu mtu for a reason or two. It could be a reason of something that happened in the past. Na pia inaweza kuwa ni reason ya kitu yenye hata haijafanyika.
Hiyo evil eye ikiwa directed kwako mazee utasafa.
Sasa sisi wote hatupendani, tunafanya nini? Hakuna hapo familia. Sasa hapo vote umeua basi familia.
Watu wakiendelea kuoneana hivi wivu, mtu akishakuwa successful, watu wengi wanaenda tuseme kama mtu ameenda jiji Nairobi. Ana feel siwezi rudi home. Sema huko kuna wivu. Huko mimi siwezi enda kuwasaidia. Sasa unaona tunapoteza progress yenye ingekuwa kwa society. Kungekuwa na maendeleo, kungekuwa na mabadiliko, lakini just because of wivu watu wanatoka. Mtu akishatoka ni hivyo. Unajisikia kuna watu wanasemanga ukishatoka usirudi.
As individuals grow older, getting to the sense of individuation and getting to understand yourself, there's the aspect of one, childhood traumas. Some of us went through childhood traumas. And so the idea of going back home, like Bonani in the home, the idea that probably you went through sexual abuse in the hands of your cousins, in the hands of your uncles or aunties, there is no longer a reason to go back home, especially when you remember what happened.
We always see children like they don't have feelings, that they don't suffer pain. They do, and it is registered in their mind. Pain, especially during childhood, is never erased. It is only suppressed. And this may be suppressed and is there unconsciously. And it is kept in their mind. Sometimes it is not in the conscious. It is the subconscious to make them live. They suppress. When something triggers, it reminds them, it will always come afresh. Most of what we do depends on unconscious part of us, which in most cases is painful. So it dictates our behavior. So this child may be a young girl who was taken through some circumcision rituals or was defiled sexually. It may always linger in their unconscious mind, and they will always act based on what they went through. And especially if they never went through the process of resolving that issue, the memories come afresh. Even the sight, even the fact that it is there, this person sings the plays, it reminds them of whatever happened where they felt helpless and nobody fought for them, and they have suppressed the pain. They have suppressed the pains within themselves, and these were not resolved. So they will always feel like not wanting to be there psychologically. They would not want to relate with them. And anytime they come into contact with such kind of people, they will always feel some kind of bitterness, and they wouldn't like to relate with them because they never resolved the differences. They will behave abnormally, unexpectedly, because of that trigger. So the pain they went through, the abuse they went through, it will always affect them. They become rebellious. They are angry. They develop don't care behavior. Maybe somebody has always felt like I'm hated, I was mishandled, and therefore I have to fight to assert myself. All this can bring conflict.
it happens a lot. And I'll also speak as a parent because I have 2 kids. Kuna kuanga na kale katoto kenye unaona kana kuguza roho kabisa. There's the temptation of saying this is my favorite child because they're doing what you want them to do at that particular time. But favoritism, especially, we imagine that kids do not notice, but they do a lot. And so as parents, if you do not create that balance to ensure that you get to understand your children, get to know them for who they are individually, then as they grow up, they start now resenting each other. So favoritism could start even from, nimeletea moja yogurt, mwingine sija mletea. Nimeambia moja she's beautiful, mwingine she's not. Or I'm focusing on one, maybe career, and I'm not focusing on the other. Or even just making some comments. Najua venye sister yako yeye ndio ataendelea, you know. So with that, you realize that sometimes, and especially now as they grow older, na kila mtu anajaribu to get their paths, kila mtu anaenda their way. And so what happens is that now it's the same parents that now have to start seeing ways to mend this relationship ya watoto, which sometimes it's not possible. For parents, especially African parents, walikuwa wanazaa, especially kitambo, wanasema nazaa ndio nilelewe niki grow older. So the person that mwenye anapeana madhe pesa sana ama the dad pesa sana seems to be the good child. So what happens is that they will always go an extra mile. Ataka labda ni kukopesha pesa, not living life to the standards that they want to, because they feel like they always have to do something.
But sometimes parents bring up children expecting to reap from them or to get a benefit, which is not right. It is our duties as children to be brought up well by our parents, whether we give them back or we don't give. And that is very wrong when parents treat us like they were investing in us. And sometimes they expect so much from the children. So sometimes it may be a source of conflict, because what they think their son or their daughter is earning may not be adequate to give them what they feel they need. Or sometimes they see like it is their right, and so the way they request for it is very harsh, and that brings some conflict.
If they are thinking, they are like, why am I the only one doing this? So this other child also, mwenye hapendwi, is also wondering, why is it that my mom or my dad does not appreciate me for who I am, or even supporting me? So what happens is they start resenting the sibling, because they imagine that they are being loved. And huyu mwenye anapendwa pia na yeye anaanza kuresent this other person, because they feel like they have to do so much for them.
There is this perceived favoritism of certain siblings because they can work well in shambas. I mean, huyu hajui kulima, you take this girl from town, you take her to rural areas, and the mother-in-law looks at the way she's handling a jembe. This is not a woman. And that can bring a lot of conflict, because people from urban areas value differently from those in the other side. And then inheritance issue.
Now brothers anang'ang'anianga, oi shamba ni mimi niliachiwa, wewe nataka shamba, wewe nataka. So hizo fields za shamba. Kama hizo tu petty thing, unasikia wewe ndo baba akiwa ni wewe ulikuwa unakuwa favored. Wewe ndo ulipewa shamba kubwa, sijui nini.
It used to be a big issue some time back.
Jitokeza huko, especially huko kwetu mimi, hiyo tunakuanga tuna experience sana huko. Mimi nimeona issue ni ya mashamba. Kama huko kwetu unajua baba yangu alikuwa ameoa mabibi 3, unapata ile familia mwisho kuna vile wanakuwa suppressed, yani wanaona ni kama walikuja wakaoccupy hiyo space yao ingine yenye walifaa wachukue. So unapata kila saa kuna shida, maybe huyo amesongesha boda ya shamba hivyo.
The values attached to land, especially in the rural area, is very high. Sibling inheritance. I feel because of the way my mother treats me, I may not inherit, or my father, I may not inherit. So how do I assert myself? And we have issues when we are not able to resolve this, and conflicts continue. I feel like my mother prefers my brother because when my brother comes home, he comes with a big basket. and I don't have anything. So I will defend myself. There is what is called ego defense. It's a defensive mechanism. I'll feel bad that my ego is put down, so I'll fight back. I'll use all methods to assert myself because I feel, and it could be just a perception. It is a perception that my people prefer so and so because he's better off economically. And this could come as a result of mistrust. I don't trust so and so, and maybe when I'm not there, he takes advantage of my absence. When he comes, my mother listens to him, and I'm sure he says negative things against me. And maybe the way we have been brought up, we have a lot of mistrust, we have suspicion one against the other, and I feel like I'm not able to cope with the competition. How do I assert myself? I have to be aggressive. Aggressive is a survival technique. Yes, I want to be aggressive and hit and show my brother that I can also be there. We've glorified some certain careers, and the others we've said they're not good careers. For example, if I go home and say I am a doctor or I am a lawyer, that's a good career. And that's what utapata watu hata siku hizi itakuwa introduction. Oh, wakili and I, engineer and I, pilot and I, nisikia wapi dereva and I. We've glorified these careers to a point here. We are making other careers not seem to be okay. So then the issue comes in that whether you're doing well and better than me, as because I am a doctor, and whether you are an artist is not. In our African setup, saizi ndo tumeanza ku embrace art. Talking with people, I feel like our parents contribute to that jealousy with the way watasema, hey, venye dada yako siku hizi anakuanga vizuri, yeye ndiendelea, hata alinunua kagari, wewe tu uko hapa tu nakutana na boda. Watu wa huku hivi familia watasema nini? And amongst us as siblings, we carry a different grace and different favors and different capabilities, and sometimes I may be in the space where things are working well for me, and that does not mean because things are working well for me sasa nijifanye that they are not working for me. You get, because of that, you'll find that sometimes the one who is successful, the others wanna gang up against this person. Itakuwa quote unquote unajifanya sana, you're having your own issues, uliona umefika. There are siblings who will sabotage their own siblings kwa sababu they are doing well. Or you will also find, because if I am doing well now, I have to self-sabotage myself. And that is why kama nilikuwa nataka kununua gas cooker, siwezi nunua because watasema ninajifanya. So kuna hizo expectations the way your family members expect that you should live. We've had these scenarios zenye unasikia ati dadako alienda akafanya uvutwe kazi because you're doing well, or you cannot do the things that you desire to do because itakuwa issue.
One day I was in a family meeting. We had extended families, and then one of the Wabukas woke up and said, unajua hata unazapata kuna mtu mwenye anaishi kwa nyumba ya analipa rent 20,000 na mimi kama buka yake nalala njaa and all that, lakini buka anaishi Malindi, mimi naishi Nairobi. It's true, my rent was 25,000 at that moment, but I was imagining how would I have known that wewe buka unalala njaa. We have this type of entitlements kama extended families because I know that my dad or my mom should be the immediate person who is taking responsible of you as the kuka because they are your kids, and then pia mimi I should be responsible for my dad or my mom and vice versa. Lakini to the extent that mimi as the grandson I'm taking care of kuka while there is the mom and the dad here, we have such kind of entitlements zenye sidhani kama ni healthy. We have relatives who have gone outside the country. You can tell the amount of expectation and entitlement that we have sisi watu tumebaki huko. Alienda US, hata ni green card alipata kutoka kwa gazeti, hatumangi dollars nyumbani. Well, somebody has gone there, maybe they're just mere gardeners there. Of course, when they come back because of the value of the money, they tend to seem like they're doing much well. But maybe back then, they're suffering, they're working very hard for that money. Lakini si hatuoni hivyo, si tunaona tu walienda US. Personally, I've gotten opportunities to go outside, lakini niki-imagine the expectation that I'll be leaving behind here, and maybe I'm going to get 70,000 which I can get here in Kenya. Nasema tu wacha nisiende.
And this also brings about the issues of parentification, where now you favor this child as a parent, and so wewe unamwagianga stress kila saa. Niko na stress, baba yako tumechapana, niko na stress ya pesa, unajua sijalipwa, unajua niko na nini. So this child takes responsibility of now nurturing you and your wounds and your emotional aspect as a child. So what happens is that now the child becomes an adult that they are not, and so they lose gaps and spaces because they are not allowed to be children. And so as they grow up and they realize that I am already tired about this, I need to get out. When they look back, maybe they even never dated because they were the parents' counselors. They never went for activities, even going out with friends, because they had to show up to resolve issues.
Kuna wazazi wenye nilipitia hizi hardships and have become very successful. So maybe this is the right way for me to nurture my kids so that they know the birth is not hard. Maybe I don't concur with that ile nyati kama ulipitia maisha ngumu pia watoto wako unawapitishia maisha. Some really borrow hizo challenges zenye walipitia kutoka utotoni wanatuletea sisi pia. Sometimes we have to bear with them, sometimes we break. And that is why some statistics showed, I think it was last year I was checking, that Kenya was ranked, I think number 5 or number 6 globally with the most young depressed people between the age of around 10 to 25 years of age. Kwa hivyo si marathon peke yake tuko top 5.
The parenting style that are used in that home. If we have, for example, some communities, they name children either on the side of the father or the side of the mother, and sometimes there is that unconscious preference because so and so is named after my mother or my father, she or he is on my side. That can bring about selective preference, and this can bring some conflicts also that contributes, especially to the communities that still hold the naming and their cultural practice.
Ukiendelea na this behavior, society inaendelea kuwa disjointed, ambapo there's no unit. Unapata maybe kukikuwa na issue kwa community yenye inahitaji the community coming together to solve, hiyo iwezekani because of that difference, watu hawaelewani. Bringing them together becomes a challenge. So kila mtu ni adili na issue zake vile atadili nazo. Hawakujangi wacha rahisi. Hata wakikuja atakangi hata umuite jina, yani watu wasikia kwa around. Anatakanga tu akuje silently, hata waonekanangi, yani hawataki yani watu wajue juu. Anajua watu wakijua inaanza kuwa issues. Watu wataanza kuchunguza wamekuja aje.
Kuna a lot of families that siblings cannot face each other.
I feel like we inherited our parents' hate. So you get to hate your cousin because your mom told you or your dad told you that.
I was brought up by your grandfather, so and so, and in that family I was mistreated. That family don't want to relate with them, and these conflicts can continue.
And so with time to may disintegrate and everyone is doing what they need to do.
We are living in a hypocritical world. Wenye hawana wanakaa kama wako nayo na wenye wako nayo wanakaa kama hawana.
Kuna profesa mmoja alikuwa akiishi huko kwetu huko. Kuna time alienda abroad na maisha yake yalianza tu kubadilika baada ya ameenda huko. Alafu sasa unakuta time anarudi nyumbani, yale magari ambayo alikuwa anaendesha labda akiwa huko na ukikompea na ambayo anaendesha pale kijijini ni tofauti. Hata ukimwangalia labda akivaa labda akiwa mahali kwingine na mali na vile anavaa akiwa pale kijijini ni tofauti kabisa.
Ukiangalia kaa kwetu, I think hata mnaona hizo picha kwa memes. Ukiangalia unapata mzee amerudi na PX, then unapata place ameenda kupakio text ni nje ya kihat na ni shamba yake ujue. Wewe unafikiria mbona msee akutaka kujenga hapo? No, because maybe the neighbors and the surrounding nini haiwezi appreciate your idea success. Unaona kwa kena nini. So what does this guy choose kuka GG the rest of his life ama nini, unaona, so that we victim wa hiyo evil lie na nini, unaona. Ya alafu najua kwetu evil lie bedhi na kugawa because at some point imeangu shawa selling chini bedhi. So if you're not careful to end up to chini.
and especially with family members who have a monitoring spirit in terms of ulikuja nyumbani, umekuja kuona mama yako, mbona mimi haujanitembelea, unajua nilikulea, then why is it that you're doing well and my kids are not doing well? Inaanza kukua issues sometimes because our parents and our aunties and their relatives and uncles had their own issues, so it has been transferred to us as children to a point that we no longer have that close relationship. We're no longer visiting even each other.
A lot of people play it low. There are people who are owning a lot of properties. They are rich in towns, but when they go back home, they leave their cars, they leave their belongings in the urban areas.
I have seen a person, a neighbor, akona gari in the city, he's working, but akienda in the village, he has to use public transport, or rather akiamua kuenda na gari, he takes a Nissan. Kuna pia gari ingine nze, KAZ, hiyo ndo gari anachukua. Wakati in town he's driving a good car, KCA. He doesn't really want ile kujulikana sana. Mtu in town ako tu na nyumba nzuri, a fully furnished house, he's paying fully for his rent, but uko nyumbani ame decide ku maintain nyumba ndogo, let's say maybe a hut or a semi permanent. Naona ni semi permanent ndio ana invest in, ameweka tu maybe some small fence around. He doesn't want watu maybe wajue ati ako na pesa or he's really thriving back in the village, so he has to maintain a low profile.
And also we have social expectations. A lot of people who are in the urban areas, the social expectation is that when they come home, they are filthy rich, they have money, they spend. A lot of people may not go back home because of the social expectations.
Kuna hiyo familia yenye mlizaliwa mkiwa vijana kadhaa, lakini kuna ule mwenye ata make it na kuna wenye tu atabaki akiteseka. So wenye make it watahamia jiji, wengine watawachomosha. Kukai kuwa na event yote ama kukue tu na kumetokea tu event yote ya familia. Hao watu wa Nairobi na kuanga respected very bad. Nasikianga kuna maji yao, wao ndo wamewekewa viti, wengine mnaambia tunaweza simama hapo hivi nje bara mnasikia kenye inasemwa. Wao ndo wanakuanga respected very much kwa familia.
A lot of people go to the shags or their up country during December, and you see in families there are people who are well off, others average, wengine wako tu hapo katikati, wengine hawana kakitu. So the children, how they receive the children, unapata if your parent ako na pesa, mtoto wako, she will not do like chores, yatakuwa like, hey kamam we keti, hey kamam we kula, leteni kamam hii, kamam atalala vizuri. But kama we your parent is poor, wendio kupika, wendio everything, wendio unatumwa, enda shamba, katakatia ng'ombe majani.
Nimejipata kwa hizi instances ambazo imebidi ni play it low, otherwise ingekuwa mbaya. Umefika pale hivi home, wewe ndio uko na kasimu kamana, ndio uko na kasamsa, wengine wote wanatumia Itel. So inabidi mazee umecheza chini, otherwise hao vijana tutaenda kupigia social story. Mazee mimi sina simu, lakini kijana nani ako na simu. Ndugu yangu hiyo simu ifiki kesho yake, screen itakuwa ishaenda, battery una charge wiki ikifika, so ukitatoa hivi kwa moto isharudi tena.
Those guys who don't play it low, you'll find that they become public enemies because the public has a lot of expectations to them. To cope up with the public expectation, if you went to the rural home using a certain car, you will have to go with another car which is bigger than the previous one, so at least to meet the public expectations. Those people who don't play it low, they are submerged into debts, they are into depression, most of them that I know, because they've been in competition to fit the public perception and the public expectations.
Ukishawa mokea tao kurudi moshadha mazee inakuwa ngori, kwa sababu lazima ushine. Unaweza shine watu wa mosha, hata hawezi jua kama una shine na unataka kushine. Utaenda kuvaa Jordan kwa matope hata kama ni wewe.
I feel like sometimes kwenda home shags inakamna with a lot of pressure sana.
Ule sistangu mwenye akoshago, mwenye sistangu mwenye alienda town, ameendelea kunishinda. Kuna vitu mingi, ako married, kuna watoto, mimi sina watoto. So hiyo jealousy pia inaleta rift. Nafanya mimi nikifikiria kwenda mashambana, nasikia wave because of that sibling of mine. Of course, when you're jealous of someone, whenever uko na maendeleo any kidogo tu hivi, inakusumbuanga roho. Like, hey, nani amebuy gari, kai. Sasa anaringa na hiyo gari yake. Nani mtu tu ameendelea, amepata pesa, ameamua, let me buy myself a car. But you don't see that way because you're jealous of that person. Amebuy gari, amekuwa promoted, mimi tasaki kuenda huko mashamba. Because ule nani anaringanga na vitu zake, ataanza kuniambia vile amebuy gari, alitengeneza nyumba, amekuwa promoted at work, vile anakuanga na watoto warembo. I cannot go there. Anapenda kujionyesha vile yeye ako juu than me. So I'm not going.
Kuna venye hata ukifanya something small, kitu tu kidogo, tuseme umerenovate tu a room, umeongeza room kwa nyumba ni nini, kuna some uncles hapo around wanakuonea tu wivu.
na kuna that chuki yenye ina rise na mtu mnagombana tu from nowhere, kunatoka tu shida kwa family.
I have had to play it low. Like for example, mimi nikienda nyumbani, I don't carry all my clothes or rather zile nguo za in some sort of way they catch or attract attention. You go there na niko tena nguo 2, 3 pairs of clothes. Hizo ndio nguo zenye nashinda nikirudia kila wiki. You don't want to make people feel ni kama they don't have or they lack. There are also instances whereby I walk so much in shorts because you want them to feel like mko the same level. They don't feel like umewaacha sana. Unajua vitu mingi sana kuwashinda. So sometimes hata wanaongelea kitu and you see it takes an educational perspective, lakini uongei unaacha tu wanadiscuss hivyo venye wanadiscuss. You don't get much into the details of education and the knowledge and the prowess ya kenye unajua. Let's say maybe if you have done a degree about something and that is the question that is in rise now, wanaongea. Like even if you want to educate them, you just say very few. Uongei sana like watu waanze kusikiza and it takes very long for you kuongea ndio wana feel ni kama you know everything ama ni kama unajifanya unajua kila kitu, because now that is the term they start using, unajifanya.
Kuna time results zangu za form 4 zilikuwa zimetoka, na unajua katika mtaa wetu mambo na uchawi ni mwingi. Sasa ilibidi nizikanyagie kidogo watu wasisikie, lakini kwa bahati mbaya result niliziona mwenyewe, lakini ilipofika asubuhi nikarealize mtaa yote ilikuwa imejua results zangu, hata sikujua ni nani hata aliwaambia.
After tumemaliza tuseme form 4, kuna watu wako join campus na wao wengine wakajoin polytechnic, sama wengine wakaanza kutafuta vibarua tu hapa pale. Mtu mkipatana naye itabidi ati umejifanya au kusonga mbele ndio ni at least si hajaachwa nyuma ama asijione failure. Unacheki
wangu hapo hiyo ndani alimis nini cluster camp na points kiasi tu, na actually tulikuwa galik moja pende kiangalia performance, tulikuwa galik moja John kwa Morio wangu cho. So ubuizi nikaanza kunotice ameanza kubehavior data za communication nini, kuna time tokea mtaani na muulize plus unaweza kamili utokotema nini, like una sense tu na communication yake na reactions venye una reactive, unaona.
Mara most unaambia your friend a lot of secrets, you tell her your wins and unexpect akucheer up on your wins, but deep down ana feel vibaya, so atakuwa like ataki kukusikiza, like akusikilizi na ile happiness, she's not happy for you. Ukimwambia your wins ako like but mkiongezi mambo zingine she's happy, but ukimwambia your wins ako like moods tu zina change, ako like a comment, anakuwa too bored.
I think wengine tu wako tu hivyo. You cannot see the reason why mtu anaweza kuwa jealous ya mwingine. Wengine tu just the way they are just built that way. Na maybe wengine wanaangalia kwa nini mwingine anaendelea mimi siendelei. So hiyo pia inaweza contribute to such a behavior. Sema you are a young person, umeanza ku make hizo steps in life, umeanza ku win, umeanza kujibuild yourself. Sema kama kwenu ulikuwa mnaishi nyumba yenye iko na kai hivi, umeanza ku pull moves, yani umeanza kuleta maybe mabati hivi. Umeona simiti umeanza kuleta, unaanza kusikia maybe kuna mtu kwa community anakuonea wivu, anasema bwana ameanza ku pull moves na mimi hapa kwangu mimi sioni progress. Hapo ndo unaanza kusikia story na uchawi. Mlikuwa pamoja mnateseka, tuseme mimi na manager wangu tunateseka sasa hivi, alafu mimi ni make it upate nimenunua kagari mahali mbele yao, unapata tu mtu ana feel vibaya juu yako, anaona mazee umesonga mbele umemwacha nyuma.
Wivu. Watu wako na wivu huko nje Jamal. Ushago unapata kuna bad characters kwa kijiji ama kwa familia tu, the same family, uncles, aunties, wanakufanya vibaya. Ule amepewa shamba kubwa kunishinda. Ubaguzi. Unajua kuna wazazi ubagua watoto. Kuna vile mimi na-treatiwa different from my sister. So nitaenda kuchukia sister yangu because mbona yeye ana-treatiwa poa kunishinda mimi? Mbona yeye ni favorite wa dad na mimi si favorite wa dad? Hapo chuki inaanza, na ile vita ikianzia hapo, as we grow tunakuwa na ile chuki kati yetu. Wewe ulipendwa sana, mimi sikupendwa sana, mimi nilikuwa ni kama ninateseka huko.
Kwanza watu kama relatives ukuwa na wivu kwa sababu maybe kulikuwa na hiyo beef kutokea kitambo. Walikuwa wanachukiana wenyewe kwa wenyewe, vizazi kwa vizazi before tuzaliwe. So hata ile familia ingine imeanza kuzaliwa, wao wenyewe wanapeleka tu hiyo chuki inaendelea.
I've had stories of witchcraft. Utapata mtu hata hataki kwenda kwao ushago just because of witchcraft. Unapata ati mtu tu akienda kwao, tuseme umetravel kwenda ucha, then you go back to the city, utaanza kupata losses. Reason being, just because hata tu going to Ocha, somebody saw you, somebody ata dawad. Let's say ulienda na gari, ameiguza tu.
One of my neighbors, kulikuwa na kijana mwenye alikuwa very very bright, alikuwa successful. Sasa kuna time alikuwa amejenga tu nyumba yake nzuri. Time ndio ako almost kumaliza ile nyumba, kuna certain mom hapo mwenye anaka granny akamwambia hiyo nyumba unajenga na hutalala. Na time hiyo nyumba yenye ilikuwa imeisha sababu wivu. So huyo kijana alipomaliza kujenga hiyo nyumba ndo anataka kuingia sasa, akakufa. Sasa hakuingia kwa hiyo nyumba. Like sometimes kuna wale watu wenyewe hata kama wewe si mchawi but ukiongea hiyo kitu ina happen.
Huko ma village kuna kwanga na many people uko na bibi wa pili, uko na bibi wa kwanza. So bibi wa pili ama bibi wa kwanza, ukiona watoto wako wanaendelea kushinda watoto wake, anakwendea kwa mchawi.
Brother ya my grandpa walinterfere na life ya mse, kuzumse alikuwa anapasi PhD, so ikaanza gatuka normal sickness hivi. Ndio akasema sijui ni nini, akawa na shida za damu na kidogo amenengai. Kizumse alikuwa diagnosed na ugonjwa mingi zenye hata asirelate, unaona. So ikafika point until one day kaambiwa mse amedai na nini, and then surprisingly hawa senye tulikuwa tuna suspect wa kushow up pay send off na nini.
My elder sister wakati alienda nyumbani huko kwao, alikuwa ni msichana ambaye alisifiwa sana, alikuwa mrembo, yani akiwa tu mdogo pale miaka like ako 4 years 5 years. Wakati walienda nyumbani pale na mamangu, mambo ilikuwa tu sawa, lakini sasa ikafika ile time sasa ni wakati wao wa kurudi. Wacha sister yangu aanze kulia kwa gari. Ameilia kutoka kwa gari kutoka Western mpaka Nairobi, msichana analia tu. Wakati wanafika wakiangalia mguu yake ya right, mguu ishaanza kufura. Hatujui kenye imefanyika, haijaumwa na kitu ama hakuna kenye, ilianza tu kufura na ndani. Anapeleka hospitali ijulikani ni nini. Kidogo inakuwa kidonda. Mpaka ikafika mpaka mahali penye daktari wanasema hii mguu inafaa kukatwa sasa. Hii mguu madaktari pia wakiulizwa hawezi sema kenye inaifanya. Imeanza tu peke yake, haieleweki cause ni nini, si cancer, si anything, but ni kidonda ambayo ina grow na imeanza kuwa na imekuwa mbaya. Msichana mguu ilimuuma hadi leo, kidonda ambayo ilianza kugrow kwa mguu yake haijaipona.
Unaogopa kurudisha go kwa sababu kama huko ndo unajua sometimes ukienda huko unapatana na magonjwa, unapatana na shida, so utaavoid kuenda huko, ukae tu kwenye unaishi.
I think the reason as to why we have evil eyes is because number 1 of jealousy and number 2 because of insecurity. Utapata maybe uko na mbogi yako inaona manze ukisucceed umetutoka manze, tulikuwa tunakula shida hapa na wewe hapa ushago manze, ukiomoka au utakuwa nataka kutusikia, utaanza kubebana na mbogi ya kilelesho kama mbogi ya Lavington tuache.
Some people will feel that so and so has more or higher level of education than us, or are more learned by the rest and therefore have more rights than the others. They will feel rejected and they feel like they are not understood. They feel that there is a lot of inequality in this home, and some people feel like they are not heard, and they suffer from fear of unknown and insecurity, because you look at this from the way I am, the way I don't relate with these people, I don't see future. Naona hapo this is because of mistrust. There is a lot of mistrust, there is imbalance of power, and this brings a lot of conflict. And all these combined will bring a sense of not belonging. And anytime there is somebody feeling like they don't belong, they will always hit back, they will always act out, they cannot contribute, they don't listen, they don't appreciate the contribution of others, and that could be a source of big conflicts.
Unity pale wakati kitu nataka kufanyika, unapata tuseme hata kama huko kwetu sasa stima haiko, watu wameamua acha basi tuchange pesa, tuseme hata kila familia itoe kitu kama tuseme 35,000, angalau tulete stima huku tusimamishe poles. unapata si kila mtu anakubali, because already watu walikuwa separated with some of these issues. Ku bring them together so that wakuje wa create something beautiful, something that is one, inakuwa ni very difficult. So you bring up a society that is separated, a society that iko na different eyes towards different things. The way they perceive things is very different to the other, as much as in one society. These people will come up from one root, lakini the way they live is very different. What they believe in are very different. Their perceptions pia ni tofauti. So ku bring up that oneness na ku develop one thing that is a successful, significant and a committed success inakuwa ni ngumu sana. Hakutakuwa na maendeleo juu hakuna venye tunaweza reason one with the other tukiangaliana na macho kama hizo, evil lies or jealousy because of one or the other. So very disjointed society, no growth, no unity, nothing significant going on.
Hata ukiangalia kampo unaonaga mababi like wanachezaga chini ndio fit in, cause rende mob inakuwaga ni ya nini, wase average maslas ndio. Kama kienda mesi unapata generally umsi anaweza jipeleka ka restaurant posh fulani hapo hivyo na kule mili yake ya 14 ama 1500, but unapata anafuata anaenda kule hiyo chakula ya nyanga ama so just to fit in na nyinyi, ndio skana ile mentality ya nini. Alafu unajua kuizi ile mentality ya kibabi inakuwaga associated na nini, like wase wana oppress wase kwa society, unaona. So unapata hawa sema babi wengi wanataka tu kufit in kwa kuwa ndio waepe hiyo narrative na nini. Mimi nikiwa chuo kuna units nilikuwa najua, but nilikuwa na kasi sijui ndio ni fit in kwa mbogi juu hizi units zilikuwa ngumu.
You're surrounded by people, kila mtu anasema hawana do or wamesota, so even if you have money, tuseme mnatembea hivi una feel like wanasema twende kwa kibanda tukule maybe chafua, but hata kama uko na pesa unasema wacha tu nikule ndio ni fit in, because ukisema ni sitakula chafua wataona kama unaringa, so unasema tu wacha tu niende nikule, at least ndio bado nikuwe kwa circle yao.
Mimi nimeenda hivi nimepata biashara moja safi, ama nimeangukia jackpot, nimepurchase kaland mahali, ama nimenunua kagari, singetaka watu wagundue. Sasa unasikia wengine wameanza kusema mimi ndio nimesacrifice makuzo. Kwanza inajua unaweza ingia ni coincide hivi umepata tu kagari hivi na fukuzo yako na dead, wanaanza kusema kijana walitoa mtu sacrifice.
My neighbor alienda Nairobi after kupata job. Immediately watu wa ushago venye walisikia amepata kazi, wakaamua kuchukua mtu mmoja kumtuma kule ili aweze kumharibia kazi. So people decided to use that person kujaribu kuharibu hii kazi ya neighbor wetu, na itaenda hivyo.
I think wana feel vibaya because ina lower esteem yao na inafanya wa question their identity, kwa sababu kuwa treated that way, si wanakuwa treated hivyo na the aunties, the grandparents, ina try to mean that wanakuwa excluded from the family, wanakuwa disregarded or something.
People believe that when maybe somebody knows that you're successful back at home, they have something we call bad omen. They might spoil your success, they might ruin your success. The more people know you're successful, the more they will be at your doorstep. They will be calling you, I don't know, somebody's son needs to go somewhere. And to be honest, you know that success was they think. So to deal with the expectations and live a capital life, I believe people play it low.
Na mimi naona watu wanacheza chini na mafanikio yao. Sababu moja ni kupunguza watu kuoneana wivu. Hasa katika jamii zetu unapata huko uchawi. Uchawi huko kwa kiasi kikubwa. Hasa unapata mtu anacheza chini kuavoid kuattract watu kwa mafanikio yake.
Ukicheza chini at least inafanya una move on.
Kwanza nikiwa high school nakumbuka I used to have friends, mimi na perform well kwa liko a certain subject. Unapata mtu anakuja anaongea vitu zingine like ni kama anakujikejeli. We chepe, unasema aje? Wende unaamka kwenda kusoma mbele yetu. Like kuna tu vitu kama hizo. Unapata book zako azi huko. Nakumbuka nikiwa form 3 nilipoteza like everything. Fika tu kwa loka yangu hakuna calculator, nini hizi ma set books karibu 6 ziko. Just because of somebody mwenye alikuwa ananifilia vibaya, na nikakuja nikapata nienda alikuwa nayo.
When you tell her wewe ni mchopi, wewe ni mwalimu, mtoto wa mwalimu, you are actually showing you are threatened, and what you are trying to do is to cover the threat. And you make this person reduce the threat by joining you. So the worst that she can do is to believe your words. She should continue being who she is or who he is, and being genuine and being self. Because even as I low down to fit, I will always at the back of my mind know I'm not this one. Can we go back and know who exactly we are. That, as we have said, is irrational beliefs. What they were made to believe about themselves, maybe when they were growing, or what they have heard about their families, their neighborhood. When you shine above the others, there is this negative that will follow you, and you have to suppress. So they live suppressing their abilities. They live below their abilities. They live below their potential because of fear, because of being paranoid, You're suspicious. And this is a mental sickness. People should know that they can live based on their abilities, because we shall never have a time that we shall all be equal.
Kwanza aunties sijui wanakuaje, watakangi progress ya mtu ama because utaambiwa unakuja town, unakuja kuishi maisha poa town, tumekutafutia kazi, alafu unajipata umeenda kukua mpocho wao, ndio unafanya kila kitu kwa hiyo nyumba.
Have this instance, someone was sent to go stay with their relatives or shall go. You are not familiar with them, you've not seen them, unatumwa huko, go and stay with your aunt, go and stay with your uncle. And then unajua with aunt and uncle kuna konga tuna ile, they have their own children who uko hapo, like you're there eating their food, you're there living in their house, so lazima utalipia, unakula chakula yao, unaishi kwa nyumba yao. This person goes to stay with them and life inakuwa uko tough.
You can't speak yourself out because kila mtu pale mashamba anajua Winnie ameenda town, ameenda kuishi maisha poa.
You are expected to do everything and the other children are there. Wewe ndo utoke shule, you still have your homework, you still have kuosha vyombo, you still have sijui uende uingize kuku kwa nyumba zao, utandikie kuku, ulishe dogi usiku, uende shule. Yani you have a lot.
Unajua mtu kama si mtoto wako, at the same time mtu kama si mzazi wako, uwezi expect that itakuwa the same relationship na kama ile tu ya mzazi. Lazima kutakuwa na challenges hapa kule, and at most kuna wenye wanaweza kuvumilia na kuna wenye wanashindwa kuvumilia.
I came with this son or daughter to this marriage. So there are some who will feel they belong more to that home than others, and that can bring some rivalry among the siblings.
Kwa vile wananga ikiwa ngumu sana, like kutuma mtoto wangu aende kae na relative unless iko so urgent. There's no way kama hayuko kwenyu utafeel comfortable. Kuna kale ka comfort kwa kwenyu, like unataka kwa kiti ukae vile unataka, you can call your mom at any time.
Tutapata like wanakutafuta na tu vitu tudogo, wanasema like kama wakianza kusema like tuseme pesa imepotea, and you hear them saying ati pesa haipotea nyumba, and you know that wewe tu ndio mgeni hiyo nyumba. You definitely know they are targeting you, and you hear them saying kwani tuko ngapi nyumba, just know wanakutafutia tu.
Ni shida huko si kwenyu nani, unaona unakaa kwa kiti vile unataka.
Naweza kusema watu walifikanga hii nyumba, watu wadi wanaekelea miguu juu ya viti shwali.
Like uwezi amka ati like pasta moja, mbona unaamka pasta moja na siku yenyu? Kuna kazi ya kufanya kwa hii nyumba. Ile ukikuwa mgonjwa like unaona ni kama una pretend. You like unataka attention.
When you get sick, they don't expect you ati umeenda kulala, why are you sleeping? Kazi zinakungojea ni wewe unataka kufanya. Ukilala, who do you expect afanye hizo kazi? Unaambiwa tu wake hapo ufanye hizo kazi. So inafika a point that ukijiambia ati acha leo nisiende shule because I'm sick, nilale nikae home nipumzike. Unaona there is no difference. Afadhali tu niende shule because if I stay at home nitafanya hizo kazi. If I go to school, afadhali tu niende shule nijikaze, nilale kwa loka, nirudi home jioni, ni survive.
So no one is taking care of you. Yeah, na remember ni family member, ni relative wenu in fact.
Very common, brings a lot of conflicts because this person will feel inferior. They feel like their rights have been taken away. They feel like they have been shortchanged because what they were expecting to get is not what they get, and they live with a lot of issues. And if these conflicts are not resolved, we have a situation of mental poor health, and this can bring a lot of pain in the family. And the auntie or the uncle will feel that they are doing so much for them. It's like bringing this person to town is an advantage, it's a privilege, and they feel that they have the right to subject them to that kind of services, and this can bring a lot of pain. And sometimes they hit back, so they become rebellious. They can also cause pain to the children they are meant to take care of. They can introduce unpleasant kind of behavior among them, and these conflicts will go on and on until they are resolved.
So ile time unaenda home kuvisit, yani unaenda ile confidence, utaki hata watu wajue ni kazi gani unafanyanga huko, kumbe wewe ni mpocho wa mtu. Yeah, na inafikanga yote imekwenda home auntie, sasa hiyo ndo anakutreat vizuri. Unaweza fikiria hata wewe ni mtoto wake. Mkirudi kwake, you go back to normal.
Na by the way, wazazi wengi wanakujanga wanaenda ushago, anapata kuna huyu alimalizanga shule, anasema kuja turudi na wewe, nitakutafutia kakos. Ukifika huko, anakwambia tulia, kuna kakitu na sukuma. Bado unafikiria hiyo maneno. Unapata umekaa 2 years, 3 years, hujawahi tafutiwa anything. Kumbe alikuwa anatafuta msichana. And then the meantime huwezi kuwa tu unakaa tu hapo. Lazima usaidie around. Anakwambia tu, ni kubaya, kuna venye tu nasukuma kitu, kuna kitu tu nasukuma, but sijasahau na ile story yako. In most time, especially if kama the person ya a lady, unapata mtu anasinyika and anaenda kuoleka. And you see, I don't want to say marriage inazima nyota yake, but akioleka sini hivyo. The ambition, the vision she had, like akienda town anaenda kusomesha inazimika and ana opt like badala kukaa huku, and you know if your family you're not being paid, unasaidia, you're not being paid, like I'd rather basi niolewe. Najua yeye akiona tu nikimpea food, nimpea place ya kulala, ni hivyo. So atakuja tu akae anisaidie kazi, alafu nitasema tu nitampeleka course, and I know the parents won't refuse. A lot of parents wanaambianga ati tutaenda tumtafutie ka course atakani kujifunza kushona nguo, kusuka. Wanasema at least ataacha kukua idol hapo. A person will never love you the same way yenye mzazi wako anaweza kupenda. Even if they are blood sisters with their parent, they will never treat you the same.
Whenever this person got sick, hangewahi sema that they are sick. Unakazana tu, they ask you, are you sick? No, niko sawa. Unafanya those cuts like nothing ever happened. Unaendelea na maisha. Watu wakinunuliwa vitu, unajua you're a child, una expect watoto wamebaiwa, pia mimi utabaiwa. But this person hakuwa anaona anything. Unakaa tu hapo, vitu zinabaiwa. And then when your parents anaamua kukutumia vitu, unasema mtoto wangu hapo huko, I'll need to buy them some stuff. They're the ones to go through the stuff. Mti yako anaangalia na chokora zenye watoto wake watachukua, na ni wewe ndo uliletewa hiyo package. Anapatia watoto wake zenye anawapatia, yeye anachukua zake. The children will still go to an extent ya kuchukua hizi vitu zenye yeye amebaki nayo. Unajua kienda kwa wenyewe, umeenda kudisrupt their everyday life. Alafu the children keep asking you, umekuja kufanya nini kwetu? They call you, they ask you, why are you here? Umechukua basket yangu ya kuwekea manguo nilikuwa natumia, umegeuza yako. Wewe umeniharibia maisha. They call you like even they hurt you, but you can't say because you're living in somebody else's house. And you have to abide by their rules because like I said, wanakulisha, wanakuvisha, unaenda shule. So lazima you follow each and everything they say. Na uwezi enda kusema because if you say, itakuwa shida.
Personally, I have experience with that relative. Nilipelekwa, he was a Christian. So time ya Christmas, wasichana wake 3 na kijana mmoja wanabongo za Kiswahili namba. Wewe ni Muislamu? Akasema okay. But for me as a young person that I was, I just wanted new clothes, just like the other people. Leave alone the Christmas part of it, you know. So for me, it's not something good. And I wouldn't say it's all family members. There are relatives you can be taken to, and they really take care of you, and they own you to the extent that even the real siblings can feel this love has become too much on the other end. Lakini for how wenye wanakuwa mistreated, these are many instances where we see childhood trauma developing. Adverse childhood trauma. And the unfortunate part about all this is even the young person at that young age, they do know that I have to do all this because I need to survive. Maybe this is the only shot that I have for me to make it in life. So they will endure all that even though it's something that is having an adverse effect on their mental health state. And now the also most unfortunate part about it is if they don't get an opportunity to talk about it, they probably never will. Maybe see watu wenye anaongeaga sana, motivational speakers maybe get opportunities or platform to say, when I was a young person, nilikuwa nakula maharagwe moja na nalala, you know. They let it out, you know. But there are people who are successful out here, and if you just sit them down and they tell you their childhood, you'll never understand how they made it out.
Yeah, watu wacha hiyo tabia ni mbaya because ule mtoto ajakelewa mawe eventually atakuwa mkubwa, na akikuwa mkubwa unaona sasa wale watoto uteswa ndio wanakuwa successful. Tuache kutesa watoto wa sister yetu, watoto wa auntie zetu, familia yetu, yani usifanye mtoto wenyewe maid. Ati amekuja kwako unamfanya maid. So please treat children the same. Kama mtoto wako na usi wako, treat them the same. Because we have people adopting children na wanawaraise wanakuwa wakubwa na si blood yao. Na huyu mtoto in fact ni blood yako because you belong to the same family.
After nimemalizana na auntie, tuseme nilikuwa nasoma and probably have made it in life, nitamweka tu mahali kwa roho. But yes, alinisaidia, but unajua ukikumbuka vitu zingine alikupitishia, but do you know hizo vitu ndio hata zinakumotivate.
I'll do my best to make sure that child is happy. Treat her the same way I treat my children. Like, tafanya wakae equal. Because of course, mtoto wa sister yangu ni mtoto wangu. Kama mtoto wangu hawezi fua nguo, pia ule hawezi fua. Kama mtoto wangu hawezi osha vyombo, pia ule hawezi osha vyombo.
If you want a maid, get a maid. If you don't want to help someone, wachana na yeye basi akae huko. There's no use kumuleta akufanyange kazi bure and you are not paying them. They're not benefiting in any way. If you want a maid, tafuta maid umulipe. Huyu mtoto ameletwa kwako, treat her or treat him the same way you'd want mtoto wako akizaenda kwa mtu akuwe treated. Because ata grow up, the child hataishi kuwa hapo. Even if like anakubo, anakusinya, there's a certain time itafika atatoka kwako. And atamachua, kama amekuja kusoma atamaliza and atatoka. Kama amekuja kutafuta job atapata and ataweza kutoka.
Culture, watu wameabandon culture. Like, unajua kitambo family ilikuwa kitu very important sana, but nowadays women don't care, men don't care.
There's a lot of change that has taken place in our society. Things are no longer the same. How we used to live as a family, extended family members together. We have our grandfathers' land, our fathers, our uncles living together and solving family issues together. We no longer do so. We have moved to various places. We are now very urbanized, and my neighbor may not be somebody that I know, and they may not even know that I exist among them. And so my issues are my issues, and I don't have somebody to share with. And sometimes these issues that used to be addressed communally, they are now left to individuals. And sometimes individuals may not have the adequate psychosocial support system to help them. So issues become very complicated. If it is parenting initially used to be a communal thing. A child was parented by everybody in the community. Today, a child belongs to the mother, to the father, and therefore, if there is anything that is happening in this child, only the parents can do. And so issues or differences that are there, they become complicated before they are resolved, and the methods of resolving them has really changed.
Mtu akikupata kwa barabara ukimisbehave, hata kama si babako, anadili na wewe hapo hapo, mnawalizana. Unajua siku hizo kuguza mtoto wenyewe ni shida. We are raising no families because sasa sisi wote hatupendani, tunafanya nini? Hakuna hapo family.
We model ways of loving and ways of appreciating our spouses based on how we grew up and what we saw. But then also the other aspect where relationships is in our later issues. I believe that right now, as we keep on evolving, I feel like people are not getting into their responsibility. Right now we have so many absentee fathers and also absentee mothers, I have to admit. It becomes very difficult that umeendanga na uko hivyo for years hujai show up, then you come and show up and you expect that things are going to flow. Understanding also the role of the family, the role the men play, the role the women play in the family. There's what the man should do and there's what the woman should do. What has been said is that men will always say, I don't know, Sangolo utasema ati hey, a woman should be submissive to me, anisikize, afanye venye nimesema, or akona voice, but they need to be submissive to me. But men also should also understand that women will only submit to men who are leaders. Men, and by leaders imanishi ya kuwa na political position huko, but are you leading the home? Are you giving direction? Are you providing? Provision is something that is key in families. Are you protecting this family? And by protecting, I'm looking at it not just from the physical protection, but even from the psychological protection. Because when a woman is emotionally safe, when a woman is emotionally secure, they will submit to that man. But when they are in their masculine energy, because also women have masculine energy, just the same way men have their feminine energy. But when a woman is in their masculine energy, it's very hard for them to submit and even feel secure in that relationship. And that's why sometimes kuna hizo friction. And because of that, inafeel kama mko wanaume wawili, she's not safe, so I have to show up, I have to man up, and I'm not supposed
to do that.
Nafikiria nowadays people have become careless. By careless I mean mwanaume anafocus na raha zake za dunia, anasahau kwamba yeye ni mwanaume anafaa ku create a family. Same as two women. Pia hao wanafocus sana na raha zao na wanasahau pia wanafaa kuwa kitengeneza familia zao. And so nowadays tunaona wababa wetu wakina baba zetu wanatafuta wale wasichana wadogo wa campus. Why? Because wanataka raha. Wanataka ku experience raha na wasichana wadogo wa high school. Unapata mtu baba mkubwa analala na mtoto mwenye anatoshana na msichana wake. So hakuna vile familia itasimama. Because already huyo mwanaume anaenda nje enda kutafuta raha zake. Pesa zake zote ndio huyo anapatia nani? Huyo msichana mwenye analala naye, si ndio? Kuna pesa na za babako. Kazi yake vibaya kwa kweli. Ndio. Sasa huyo mzee badala alipia watoto wake school fees, take care of his family, provide for his family. Busy giving other girls money out there. Ndio apate tena kulala na wao. That is immorality. That is one of the reasons why families are dismally nowadays. A lot of immorality.
We have very many sources of advice. We have social media. We have people that we may not know, celebs, and we seem to be listening to them more than to our parents. So issues are not adequately resolved and becomes very complicated in the family. I say it's not wrong. It's not wrong to take alcohol. It's not wrong to dress this way. It's not wrong to watch pornographic movies even at night. It's not wrong. And they are held very strongly and they can bring a lot of conflicts. In this family, we do not have clear boundaries. I don't know how far your freedom or your rights go to. You don't know how far my rights and privileges go to. We find like we are interfering with our individual rights because we don't have clear boundaries. And because of that kind of relationship, the same thing happens to children.
Take care of your family. Because already, ukianza familia, you made a decision. You decided to marry, get children. You're supposed to adjust. Kuna vitu nafaa uachane nazo because umeingia another stage of life. Because marriage is a very big step.
If these boundaries are not clear, right from the time people start their marriages and they are observed and they keep being revisited and talked about very often, this can bring a lot of conflicts. There are people who believe that women cannot own any property. These are just irrational beliefs. Others feel that we have to share everything equally. Others feel that children need to inherit. Others, girls cannot inherit. Then we have this issue of equality. Boys and girls are equal. If these values are not agreed upon and we work on these values at family levels, they will always bring conflicts.
Usikuwe like sasa wendo unataka kukua juu. Feminism is good but to some extent. I support the girl child. I want the girl child to get everything that and I deserve. I go out there, I excel. But when it comes to family units, still remember that yes, you are the female in that house and there's a male in that house. There's person who the head of the house do ana bring order, ana bring leadership, and ana protect that family na ana provide for that family above all else. Yeah, lazima akue responsible. If you're not a responsible man, no, because ndo ukue a family person, ukue responsible. Know that now that you've started the family, we ni baba.
Unajua sasa then kuna ile aspect ya independence. Mwanamke amejua mimi pia naweza fanya kazi na nijitegemee. Yeah, sasa mbona nikae na mwanaume? Unajua kitambo mwanaume angepiga mwanamke alafu ni kawaida. It's okay. I'm your baby after all. You own me. But nowadays, hakuna mtu ana own mwingine. Nijaribu niguze hata ukijaribu tu ile unaleta mkono hivi nikao unataka kunipiga and I'm out. I can stand by myself. I can build myself.
Personally, I consider myself as a feminist because if I have siblings who are ladies back at home, I would want them to access education, a good job, quality life, quality health. That is part of the concept of what feminism was all about. We would want them to be empowered so that when they feel abused, they can always seek help. We cannot attribute feminism to characteristics that we see on the street. For instance, back then, a few years ago, Nyeri, I think, anytime ulikuwa unasikia mwanaume amenyofolewa, like the reproductive organs were being cut off. That is not feminism. Lakini ukiuliza hiyo madam why she was doing that, atakwambia, huyu alikuwa anaenda na lewa 24/7, haleti vitu kwa nyumba, she can almost validate the reason why she did it, but that is not feminism. If you ask me if with all this wokeness, if it has had an effect, yes, because Nowadays, they're looking for their mothers in the ladies they want to date. You get, like mimi nikidate dem nazataka kuwa kama mama yangu, lakini ukiangalia mama yako, she was born in 80s ama late 70s, she didn't go to school, maybe alikuwa anaona mau. You get, saizi wewe unapata a lady who is a banker, she's earning more money than you, for instance. There is a lot of insecurity that goes into that. Kitambo, it was as easy as mzae kusema jioni tupike chapo, that is what will be made. You know? Yeah. Nowadays is baba boy unataka tupike nini, sema ugali, sema tunakula ugali jana, tunaweza pika rice. They want to negotiate, so you feel threatened. Mimi sikuwa na mamangu akinegotiate na bwana yake. You get, and also it's also vice versa also for the men. Yeah, I had a friend who told me he is not masculine, like he liked the lady to lead in the relationship. Dem akimoza, babe tupike nini, anamoza, what would you prefer? Aliniambia aliachwa because of that, because yeye the way she has been brought up ni mwanaume anasema hivi, yeye anafuata. So she's not used to ati yeye aseme ave mwanaume afuate. She's not used to that. So it has had an effect on us, and that reminds me of something that we call the reluctance to admit complexity. Nowadays we are very complex and very diverse. Times have changed kabisa. The mere fact that sisi kama wanadamu with our own minds we are cocooned in the fact that this is how life should be lived is something we call a cognitive trap in psychology. Hii ni kitu yenye limit sana in terms of how we are thinking and how we are behaving. We need to be open-minded that hii inaweza shift to this direction. Hii inaweza shift to this direction. If you can be open enough to all these directions that are possible, then we can live healthier lives.
Gender is the perception or definition of who a woman is or who a man is in a society. Gender has changed. The woman that used to be there in 1910 is not the woman that is here. The woman that was there in 2000 is not the current woman. So we are talking about equality. They are getting equal opportunities. So they cannot be doing exactly what the grandmother and the mothers were doing, because then a woman's position was in the kitchen and was to be told and not to say. But today the woman is contributing economically to the well-being of the family. She is a political leader. She is very assertive. She has her own power economically and socially. And if we have this man who's still living like is at 2000, there'll be a lot of conflicts. Because this man may be thinking that the woman will always be the saying yes and I'm sorry. Today she'll have to put facts on the table. So if this man is not ready to be challenged, then there will be conflict. How a man was those days is not how a man is. A man was security of the family. A man was the sole provider. The man was the sole decision maker. Today, we have this man living together with a woman with almost the same powers. So there has to be adjustment so that this man can accept what this woman is saying and this woman can accept, and they now look at things from the current situation.
It boils down to the intent. It's the patience that we have for the compatibility. It's very hard, unlike a charge under USB and unaingiza hivi and then they just fit. Even though we might be wealthy together, we might be intelligent together, we might be smart and renowned people in the community, we are not 100% compatible. There is a lot that I don't like about you, there is a lot you don't like about me, and there are some similarities that we do have. Now it boils down to, do you have the patience for us to work towards the things that we are not in line together, yani tuvumiliane as we try to build hizi vitu zenye maybe for you it's non-negotiable ama deal breakers for you. That patience, that level of patience ndo naweza sema is different from kitambo. Kitambo kungekuwa na hiyo kuvumilia kidogo, vitu kama hizo. There are mechanisms to address them, maybe mother-in-law, father-in-law. But as we've rightly seen hata kwa movies nowadays, mother-in-law na father-in-law ni toxic. So you realize even though we are undergoing some challenges, we don't even have people who can come in and support us as a third party. Most people would have gotten help from family therapy, but how many are embracing it? I think in my career, 6 years now, I've done only one family therapy where I have the father, mother, and 2 kids. Just one? Yeah, in 6 years. Yeah. So you see, they don't have that support. It's more of less of compatibility, more of what are we doing to make sure that hii part yenye tuko incompatible, we are working towards it. That we have something that we call gender roles and sex roles, and in the spirit of accepting complexity, sex roles will never change. But when it comes to gender roles, personally I've come to terms that these things are going to change, and I have to be very open-minded with them. For instance, I don't know, I'm not married yet, but I know I might marry a lady who I know to cook better than, you know, the beer has tested my food, she knows I'm a good chef.
Very good chef.
So it's a matter of if I marry Zippy, will she accept that my man can cook better than me? Ama this is my role, I should be cooking. And I might marry a billionaire. Zippy is a millionaire here. If we get married, for instance, am I as a man willing to put my ego down and say, well, I understand and I acknowledge that my wife earns more than myself. And all this is part of us being a family. If we dispute around gender roles, then we will never settle in this relationship. So it's a matter of me going back to accepting the complexity that these are things that are changing.
Now that the settings of our families and relationships have changed, we still have counseling. We have the professional counseling that is there. I think it is that not knowing that it is there, not knowing the value. But I wish people would try. It works. And those who have tested, they can share and say it works. So people should try counseling. And before we even get married, we need to have premarital counseling so that you get to know who this person you are dealing with. Otherwise, we shall go with what is said that love is blind. But immediately you marry, love gets very big eyes. Anaanza kujua, we didn't talk about these things. And these are the issues that are raised during premarital counseling, and people understand who the true person is. Sometimes we say, after getting married to him, he will change, I will help him change. No, changes don't come just that easily. If changes are to take place, they are to take place before marriage. And they don't take place. Actually, what happens is understanding. So you adjust. And you cannot change the other person. You can only change yourself. And you cannot change yourself until you understand who this person that you are dealing with.
Kitambo, we used to have a relationship as a rite of passage. Oh, kambaka kuna stages za dating, ati kuna talking stage, sijui ni. Nowadays, hakuna hizo. Nowadays, we meet. Are we vibing? Yes, we are vibing. Children, umeachwa next. Because it is in these kind of stages that you can establish what are the challenges do you go through. Somebody will tell you, Mimi, I've masturbated for 15 years. Yeah, so you start asking yourself, is this something that I would want to deal with? Is there any way I can help this person? Yes or no? You start gauging from that stage. But the moment you jump that stage and then you go into a long-term commitment, and then you realize, oh, so this is what has been happening. This guy has sexual dysfunction. How am I going to survive? You have a 15 million wedding today. Kesho wameachana. It's because of these things.
In this generation, people are not raised because, kama Gen Z, most people are looking for money. Me, I want a guy who has money. I'm going for a guy who has looks. I'm going for a guy who has a car. Mtaenda huko mwanze kuishi. Mtakuwa unapewa pesa, but there's no love. There's not that family unit. Ine kitu kifanyika mnaweza sit down and talk. So for there to be a family, lazima mkae chini and consider a lot of things before wamwe kusettle na mtu. Na people these days are like to, wewe uko na pesa, unafanya kazi gani? Awe ni mechanic? Hapana. Nataka daktari, nataka engineer, nataka mtu ako na pesa, mtu ana drive Audi, Mercedes, nataka uko na Toyota hawakutaki. So hizo ndio vitu watu sasa wana consider when choosing a partner.
Marriage and living together has a lot to do with understanding and appreciating the other person, not being superior and the other one being inferior. It is seeing what can I bring to the family? What opportunities do I have? What potentials do I have? Without considering you are a man or a woman. I know biologically I am a woman, and you know biologically you are a man. But you see, your ability may not be attached to being a man or being a woman. It is your potential, your mental capabilities. What can you do? And the moment we appreciate this, we shall be at harmony. We shall coexist harmoniously and be very, very productive in our families.
Quite a number of people are no longer authentic when it comes to relationship. There's the facade that we want that you put into people. There's what social media wants to see. And in the process of all that, you'll find that people are trying to change others. And you realize you cannot change other people. People change when they want to. And the issues of human rights have also brought the game change. Like, for example, if my parent was a very patient na anavumilia because of abuse, physical abuse, then I will not do that because now I have the information, I am woke. And as we continue with the generations, also things change. Also looking at it from a mental health perspective, that you can only love the way you are loved. And as we grow, we keep things from our parents that we say that, so I know if my dad was present and loving my mom, I know this is how a man should love me. But right now we are having so many dysfunctional families. We are having absentee parents that even as children, we cannot copy what is there, and we cannot model or pick values of marriages. And ndio maana saizi with the little thing, we are not talking kila mtu aende kiburi. Kiburi kila mtu. Because right now people are asking, why are we submitting as women? Why are we loving? We model ways of loving and ways of appreciating our spouses based on how we grew up and what we saw. Right now, we get into relationships and marriages with an existing exit plan. In terms of, by the way, ninakuja kukaa 3 years, nikafunge. Ni contract. Right now, people are getting into contractual marriages. But then also with the exit plan here, if this does not happen, it's not working. The negotiables, the deal breakers. But sometimes you find that some of the deal breakers that are there are more of superficial in terms of iko tu. So asiponiongelesha one day, I am not talking to him, kila mtu aende kivyake. Also in terms of even infidelity, like if you're not there, you already getting into this relationship ukiwa na mpoa wako wa kando, mwenye labda ni mpoa wa mwingine, you're not even going to invest in this relationship because you already know, I already have someone else who is filling me up. I personally believe, and probably it's a reality, that I cannot be everything to my husband the same way he cannot be everything to me. But then when you're getting your cup filled by other people, what's the role of your partner in your life? The exit plan is I have already someone who will sort me out. The exit plan for most of the people is infidelity. I will go. And most of the time we point at other people, you are the mistake. Wewe ndio uko na shida. But we really go back to ourselves and ask ourselves, what role am I playing in my own misery? What role am I playing in these whole issues when it comes to family and relationship?
And the reasons of these separations or divorces is because of conflicts that are not resolved. And it is time that we know we have family therapy, we have counseling, we have children therapy, we have areas that people can be taught, psychoeducation on issues of living together, marriage, parenting. People should know their solutions.
Peer pressure has become an in thing. Kitambo tukwanga tunaongelea peer pressure, vijana wadogo kuvuta bangi, sigara, shule, sijui kutoroka shule. Nowadays it is people with competition. Everybody wants to be in competition. You getting married to maybe one of the most beautiful people around Kenya and something like that. It is not based on the principles of love, affection and mutuality that we used to know kitambo. You get? Nowadays we do it for fame, we do it for formality, we do it as a rite of passage.
And I think parents should let their children be. Times are different. Those days when girls were growing up, you grow up knowing that after 18 years, 16 years, you have to be married. And it's like the role of a girl is to get married and to become contributor to their family where they are married. And in the process of getting married, their families benefit by getting dowry. Things have changed. And today we are not getting married that early because we have so much to achieve in terms of career development. It takes so long. And by the time we want to achieve what we want to achieve, our parents are becoming a pain in the neck. We want this, we want a son, we want to be called grandparents. I think we should understand times have changed and people should be let to do what they can do and live their lives as they choose and as times allow. Sometimes there are those differences where you say, my son, you have to marry so-and-so. You have to marry this daughter of our neighbor. And then you don't make that decision. You don't make that choice. You go against their will. And you always be reminded you married the wrong person. This is the person who would have liked you to marry. That can bring conflicts. Yeah. And what young people would prefer to do is to keep off. Because anytime they go home and that issue is raised, there will be conflicts.
Umekuja December peke yako, hii mwaka tena, we have really like a very high importance in marriages. I love love, I love relationships. But now we get to this point where your success is dependent on whether you have someone or not. Mama kikucall, your dad, ujapata mtu bado. But the pressure ifai kukua to every other time, ni mtu. What about, umepata kazi? You know, those kind of things. So when you imagine that you will go back home to those questions, and sometimes probably it's at that point where you're nursing a heartbreak, you're trying to figure out life, things are not working according to this perfect plan that each one of us has for their lives, it really gets overwhelming. And because you do not want to keep on hearing those questions, you're like, this time sikuji job ninafanya through the holidays, or I will not make it. Because then what happens sometimes is that you get into the temptation of just getting into any relationship because you want to prove a point. And sometimes times our parents and our family members, for them it's an issue ya community kuembrace and having your parents have something to talk with in the community and shags, mliona mtoto wangu alifanya hivi, aliolewa, alioa. The pressure also comes in when you are not ready.
And even it's a matter of lifestyle as well. Mnaingia kwa marriage and then you realize huyu ni mtu wa sherehe, mimi si mtu wa sherehe. Huyu anasikianga ngoka nayo na mimi nataka kusikia unikumbuke Yesu. Deal breakers ni vitu zenye kitambo hazikukuanga. Kitambo mngevumiliana. Maybe bwana yako ni maumau anaenda kupigana nje, atarudi after 3 months na mvumilia. Nowadays you go for 2 days, ukirudi hauna bibi. Things have changed. Deal breakers have become so many and very fragile. As fragile as unapika indomie siku 3, mimi sitaki mtu kama zizi. Ama you're ordering food from KFC na unaweza pika. We can't live like this, it's over.
You should consider someone who mkikosana you'll sit down and talk. Someone wenye mna understand each other. Someone who is God fearing, you'll sit down, you'll pray together, you'll talk. Akona family values. When you meet someone unamuliza, are you still in touch with your family? Kama akona familia yake inamaanisha pia akona you morals and values za family, you need to know how to go about it. Picking the right person is very important because utaki ukwe na partner and then after 2 weeks or after 1 month ni divorce after you used a lot of money on your wedding. Utaki mtokuwa mnagombana anatoka kwa nyumba ama anaanza kukupiga, anakuwa like violent. Utaka that person that ukikuwa na shida kwa nyumba, you will both sit down, wait for each other to calm down, then talk. Waambie, this is what you did na mimi haikunifurahisha. Going forward, I think this is how you should do things. Communication. Ukiwa na mtu ana communicate, whenever something happens, anakwambia. Communication is key because naona hizo harboring. Like msipoongea, I won't know what's wrong. Wewe tu nikifanya makosa unakasirika, unaenda huko kwa room, utaki kuongea. How will I know what's happening? Channel your emotions, express yourself. Tell me that ulifanya hii. Unakujanga tu kama umeacha viatu hapo, unazirusha kwa sitting room, mshipi. Mimi pia I'm a human being. Naenda kazi and I'm trying to make this work. Ukikuja eka vitu this way, put them this way. Mnaelewana na kutakuwa na a lot of wrangles in your relationship.
And that is what happens. So unazapata in a family setup there is something that is bothering them. They would like to address it, but the mother says that the father is neglecting and the father says this is a lady, she should be addressing it, and they are not addressing the issue, and so it accumulates up. Kidogo there are rumors that the father is cheating, you are not addressing it. So easy issues always na pile up, the tolerance rate goes down, and then the only thing that leads then it's hatuwezani na relationship.
How we used to live as a family, extended family members together and solving family issues together, we no longer do so. We have moved to various places. We are now very urbanized. People have different values. And when people have different values and they are living together, especially spouses, one of the couples feels that they have a certain religious affiliation. The other one feels a different affiliation. They may not cope because everybody feels that my way is the best and the other one feels the same, unless there is one who is going to say, just a minute, let me listen to you. Supposing I adjust here. But in most cases, these beliefs can be taken too far. There is this feeling like your people are not religious enough. Your people believe in some beliefs that are not good, maybe witchcraft and all that. And somebody says, I don't think I'm in the right place because I saw when we went to your home, your mom said this, your dad said this, or they practiced this before we sat. There is this ritual they did, and I feel I'm in the wrong hands. You never told me this when we were getting married. And then the other one says, what's wrong with that? This can bring a lot of conflicts just because of values. Or maybe I want us to bring children, teaching them these kind of values, and those are not your values. If the two do not agree, then they'll have a lot of conflicts and they may not know how to bring up their children. A family that has the mother and the father not belonging together, not reading from the same script, there will be conflicts or even how to bring up the children in that home.
We're not heading in a good place.
There is nothing as essential as being intentional in everything you do, say, or even react to. People getting into relationships knowing very well that probably if it's a lady, they do know maybe they're barren, but that is something they won't disclose in the early stages of them before getting into a long-term commitment. We do know, some men do know they have sexual reproductive health dysfunctions, but because of the intention of them getting this other person, they wouldn't share that. They do know that maybe I am an addict of alcohol or an addict of this and this, but they won't disclose it because it boils down to what is the intention. Nikimwambia mimi I'm an alcohol addict, this might be a deal breaker, and I might miss on all the wealth that she has, and vice versa. If we get our intentions right and put ourselves in an empathetical position in the sense of what I was in the other person's shoe, then probably we could be more honest with ourselves and start having these very hard conversations. Life will be much better.
I believe it's time as family members to have genuine and honest conversations. Tuache hizi kuweka things and pretending that we are okay, because every year we have to go home and take that family photo, post kwa social media. I'm looking at this from different angles. This also includes parents, and why I'm saying parents is because me growing up, there's no way I would tell my mom umekosea and she would say sorry. But for us to mend these relationships, for us to go back home, we now need to have that sit down and say, I was hurt because I felt like you favored my sister, and then without kusema ati hapana ikuwa story, without any form of justification. The saddest bit is that it now flows from one generation to another. That now because I have issues maybe with my siblings and I have kids, they have kids, I'll be like, nisirudi kuona mkiongelesha huyu. So who do they turn to, especially in this day and age where kids are not safe, where things are happening? Who do you turn to? I believe it's time that we go back to the Ubuntu. When that doesn't work, at the end of the day, you've done your best, you've tried, it goes back to you. Your mental health is important. Your safety, your sanity is important. Does that mean that you need to have boundaries? Yes, because there are relatives that as much as you try to work toward reconciliation, they will not hear any of it. As an individual, it's your responsibility to heal. Heal from the trauma that you've gone through. Heal from the issues that you have gone through, so that you do not bleed on people that never deserved it or were not even there in the first place. Why? Because when you heal, then you change the patterns of the relationships that were there. And also now you become intentional in choosing and even being with people who are healed or who are also intentional in their healing. If you don't do that, the patterns of bad relationship, patterns of you not understanding are your responsibility, or even you doing what you need to do, will always continue.
If at any point you have this kind of hard conversations, even if it's you and your parent, tell your parent, I'm now grown, maybe size mamangu is in bigger, I'm a just realize over the several years that I've been under your care, I've been abused. You've been abusing me, whether physically or something of the sort. Kuna uncles wengi sana. I did some research when I was in campus. Uncles wengi sana have raped their nieces. Wengi. Most of the girls have been raped by their relatives. Are you willing to have that conversation? Because hakuna siku yenye utasikia huyo uncle anaenda ushago pia wewe uamue kwenda. But address it. Mwambie uncle, I know I was young then and I couldn't defend myself, but right now I just know that I do know what you did and I would like you to take responsibility of that behavior. Have you gotten it out? Maybe will you ever heal from it? God knows, but at least you've addressed it. That's the healing process yourself first. Kitu yenye sisi wote hatutaki kuhave ni those uncomfortable conversations. We prefer letting it slide than talking about it. I think one way forward that we can have around all these conversations is let's have that conversation around the table. We don't have to do it in town. Let's have your family gathering ushago. So December sisi wote tutamit, sisi wote with no exception. Tuende ushago tuone shosho while shosho is making supper for us pale kwa kuni. Let's have this conversation. What happened to us? What happened here? Let's catch up. Ulikuwa pilot, well and good. Wewe mzee wa kijiji, well and good. At the end of the day, just sit back and look back at your shago. What has the place done to you? In fact, it's serene. The weather is good. Food is fresh. It's a good place. Lakini hatutaki kuenda because of individuals. You know, unlike mtu akikushoot and then you can see the wound. Mental health wounds are not visible. You see vitu zenye utaona. And that is why people don't consider mental health as diseases or illnesses. But we all suffer from one thing or the other. People who feel they need help always seek help. And even if you think you don't need help, like you are okay, just try it. Unasikia ni wale mtu anasema
try me. Just try it. Sema, today as the head of the family, I want to bring a therapist. I mean, I'm going to have a family therapy. And then you realize, kumbe there are so many wounds around your family. Amjai kwa class meeting, and then mtu anakwambia, wewe, najua unaibaga calculator yangu, huyu ndo anaibaga pen. You never knew people knew such kind of things, you know. So that is what happens in family therapy. People have candid conversations, and I think that is one thing that we should start embracing. If you put it as a routine that you'll be doing it once in a month, it will enhance your mental wellness as a family unit.
There's open possibility for families to come together with the condition that everyone takes responsibility and play their part and the genuineness. So if, for example, fathers will take their responsibility, men will be fathers, women will be mothers, and husband and wife, it's possible. But then there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And above everything, I also believe in the intention of you wanting this to work. And all the parties actually wanting it to work. Because ikikuwa tu ni mtu moja, then the friction and the struggle will be real. But then if we come together and say as a family, we want this, it's possible. Families can be reunited. Work on yourself, be intentional in that. And I would also say this is for adults. Don't get into relationships and don't get married if you think that it's the relationship that will heal your wounds. Fix yourself first and things will fall into place.
Unajua huwezi weza kusatisfy kila mtu. Ati niseme sasa ndio nimekuwa successful, nitafanya life ya kila mtu ikuwe poa. Pale kwetu familia sasa, nijengea nti yangu nyumba, nti yangu mwingine ngo sijui nani hivyo. Siwezi satisfy kila mtu.
Don't think so. Itakosta lot actually. Una imagine saizi ukianza kuishi expense ya msi anaweza ishi life ya 2000 ama 3k per day. Na una hustle, una wera, una income. Unaona? Wase wajikubali tu. Ni normal.
To create awareness kwa society. Wacha to educate na the importance ya kuwa contented na kenye uko nayo. Saizi hata wewe you are a witness that saizi hatuna a lot of family gatherings that we used to have. Venye unakaa Nairobi, mnakaa apartment na flat, hujui jirani yako, in fact hujui mtu yote kwa hiyo plot. Hapo ndo tunaelekea. So kila mtu anataka kukaa maisha yake yeye mwenyewe privately bila mtu mwingine. So the social bonds za society zitakuwa broken. Utakuwa unapiga nduru kwako, wewe uko peke yako, hakuna mtu akona shughuli. Sasa atakuwa na mali, anakaa Nairobi, watoto wake wanalelewa Nairobi, the next generation ambayo inakuja haitakuwa ikijua ushago pao ni wapi.
So nanionea hivyo because nimebuy gari mpya ama because nimekuwa successful in life. Should also work hard and be successful like me because it feels bad. Unaniangalia vibaya, unaniongelelea. Unajua the moment umepata pesa kidogo ama umepata pesa umekuwa successful, vitu watu husema ni siku hizi anaringa ndio uko na pesa. Siku hizi hataki kuongelesha watu ndio uko na pesa. Na in real sense hakuna kitu kama hiyo unafanya.
Sasa unajua baraka ya mtu ni ya mtu. Wewe umebarikiwa different na mimi nimebarikiwa different. Sasa kuna venye mimi na wewe tutaifanana. Mtu tu accept. Familia nyingine ilibarikiwa na madaktari, yes. Mimi nilibarikiwa na kitu fulani, yes. Wewe yule mwingine alibarikiwa na kitu fulani, yes. Tusitake kufanana, hatutaifanana. Baraka ya mtu ni ya mtu. At the end of the day, hakuna kitu wivu itakusaidia. Kwanza huyu mtu mwenye anakuwa na wivu na mtu, ananga progress. Umeonea wivu ule mtu. Yeye anaendelea kusoma, watoto wake wanaendelea kupata job, nini. Wewe utastagnate hapo ukiendelea kuona, fulani leo walipata daktari aligraduate, kijana walipata kazi, wewe utakuwa unasema wewe ulifanya.
People should know that they can live and live based on their abilities, because we shall never have a time that we shall all be equal. And it is wrong to make all of us be equal. We are gifted differently. And we need to deal with these irrational beliefs that people will bring me down, I'll be made to die, I will be confused. People have hidden power, some supernatural power. This is just fear that make people to suppress others and to make others suppress themselves. It is time people lived, and we can live if we are able to address these issues. We speak out. We get solutions so that we change the belief patterns that we have, change the thoughts that we have. When we change our thoughts, our negative thoughts, and some of these thoughts are unrealistic, and we live the real lives and we are rational in our thinking, in our ability, in our behavior, you'll see ourselves living. And let people live without fear, and they achieve according to their potentials. What are your goals in life? What are your potentials? What would you like to do? What are those factors that will hinder you from doing that? If they are succeeding, you can also succeed. They have not been under the forces that you are fearing, and those forces may not be real.
People should be aware that once mtu mmoja tuseme ame make a step in life, ameprogress kwenda mbele, anaweza come back to the community ama society, achukue wengine 2 3, au empower pia waweze kusonga, na ikiendelea hivyo at the end of the day unaweza pata hata community yote as a whole imeinuka na imesonga from one stage to another. Maybe ilikuwa ka local village ama nyumba za manyasi, kunaanza kuwa na permanent hapo, hata maendeleo inakuwa mingi, literacy inapotea huko, watu wanakuwa educated, professionals wanajaa kwa community, so community ina grow. Ole boys mwenye anaenda Moshago na park gari hapo, you'll do that until when waenda na gari yako, they know, they see it, and they have to adapt and realize that this is the new norm. For that parent who has maybe a favorite kid, one of the participants said, one of the kids came to her and she said, "Mom, tell us who your favorite kid is." No, seme hakuna, because we know there is. And she said she was dumbfounded because she knows there is, but she wasn't sure if she's supposed to say it or not. You get? What if we have these conversations that for these kids that you dislike them for specific characteristics, and for this one that you like them for specific characteristics. Maybe they follow through simple instructions, they behave well. What if we have, instead of you favoriting them, you say to this ones when you huwapendi, ama they are not your favorite, if you did this and this, you could be much better. I like it when some does this, yeah. If they can see that there is no favoritism, but you are trying to nurture them into that way. Mzazi akishapata the favorite, au wengine wanakuwa silent like nyinyi endeleeni tunaupuuzi, at least mimi nimepata mmoja mwenye anaweza follow through, you get. But we can always nurture them into the way that we anticipate. It's not imposing, like you just tell them, I like it when this one does this, so, and then they know, kumbe mama anapendanga tukimaliza kukula tunatoa dishes tunapeleka jikoni, simple as that, and they will do it.
Except that these problems are real and they are there. However good our families are, we are in problems. So that understanding that there is a problem and we don't close our eyes towards this issue, that is the starting point of now thinking of the way forward. Bringing equality, bringing a feeling of I'm at home, I am also good, I also can contribute. We are only different. There is nothing like being bad or being good. We are only different. And the moment we have that kind of understanding, then we can now go to look at the underlying issues. What is it? What is it? Where did the rain start beating us? And what is the way forward? Maybe there are leaders in our families that have been suppressed, and given an opportunity, they can bring their leadership skills. This person who has always been at home, appearing like they are doing nothing, let's give them a chance to speak. Then we think about asking for help. This is when we think of going for counseling. We have very many counselors. Let's seek for counseling services and to embrace therapy. That is the word. We need to embrace therapy.
The best thing you can do is therapy. Go to see a therapist, talk to them. People need to sit down. People need to talk. Na waambiane, express emotions. Useme, the reason why sikujenge mashamba, ule alinifanyia this and this. Ule kuna kitu ilifanyika. Kama ni land issues, let's solve. Land mnaweza gawana, mnaweza mpande mahindi kama nyinyi brothers. The harvest mushe. Just talk things out.
Changes are those things that bring a lot of stress and distress. Coping with changes is not easy. Most of us have gone through changes, loss of job, poor health, moving from one geographical place to another, and all those could be causing the conflicts that are there. We need to seek help.
Naweza sema tu mazee, watu wapendane. Sijui tutawapendanisha vipi? Awareness penye naweza pitia labda campaigns za kusema mazee watu wapendane. Sijui kama watakubali kusikia, lakini watu wapendane bana.
Encourages people to love one another, just spreading love.
The Bible says the family should be united, and where there is unity and there is support, God releases blessings. So it is important for people to embrace those of their members that they feel they have not been at par with the rest, to help them come at par.
I don't know if we can ever go back to those days when tulikuwa tunaenda Christmas, mko hapo with your cousin, tunapika chapati, tunapika kuku, we celebrate.
We're not saying that we want to fix things na turudi exactly wenye tulikuwa.
Situations change our view and how we approach things. Then are we willing to embrace that version? Are we willing to embrace that? Yes, this won't change this person, but we pick. It's time as family members to kuweka things under the rug.